חבר'ה, שסיים עם האוכל הזה, ככה ביס האחרון והתיישב. שלום לכולם. שמי ארז ברקנר, וזה למעשה האירוע הראשון בפורום שנקרא פורום של Cloud Security. אני אספר עוד שנייה על עצמי, אני מנהל קבוצת Security Virtualization ב-Checkpoint, והיום האירוע מתרכז סביב נושא של יותר overview על מה זה Cloud Security, מה זה Virtualization Security, וייתן יותר, לא נקרא לזה טעימות או טיזרים, לקראת אירועים הבאים שיתבצעו ויעשו, יש גם הרבה יותר אינדקס לכל הסביבה. אני הולך לעבור לאנגלית, ההרצאות יהיו באנגלית, יש גם מספר אנשים שהם ידעו באנגלית. So, I'm moving to English now. I'm going to give a quick introduction and discuss the Cloud Security Forum. Like I said, this event is going to be a teaser. The next forum, the next event, will drill down into each of the subjects you will hear about now. So don't expect to hear all the solutions here, but expect to hear a lot of problems. Okay, so this is the focus. So we're going to do a short introduction. We're going to talk about risk in cloud and in virtualization environments. And we have a guest lecture by Amit Cohen, who will talk about security in speaking cloud challenges for small and medium businesses in the public cloud. Okay, so a little bit about the forum and the targets. One of the targets is to present new security technologies and new best practices and products. To provide a stage for new products, a new Israeli startup, and additional cloud and virtualization security technologies. To allow us and you to share ideas and to encourage innovation. To network, this is one of the things we're trying to do here. So there is created a cloud security network in Israel. And like I said, this is the first event. I will be happy to hear about any feedback, any question, any issues, any things you want to hear about in the next event. And if you would like to contribute, you're welcome to suggest yourself or others as guest speakers, to suggest workshop, content, and if you have a product to suggest presenting your product in this forum. So very briefly about me, I'm dealing in the last 30 years with security, 6 of them in virtualization. I manage the virtualization security group in Checkpoint R&D. I'm always looking and researching new and interesting technologies of virtualization. I do some startup consulting when I have my spare time in the evenings. And in general, I'm interested in technology, virtualization, cloud, and security. So you can read a little bit. I just started my own new blog, and here are the details for you to follow up if you like. I will have them at the end if anybody wants to prepare. Okay, so a little bit about virtualization security, but I will start by giving, like, in order to make sure we are all on the same page, to present the concept of virtualization. Virtualization actually decouples the physical and the physical hardware and the resources from the application and the software. So in this demonstration, we have here the hardware, we have a layer which is called hypervisor or virtualization layer, and we have virtual machine running, and each of them feels like it has all the resources of the environment. So the physical environment, the physical resources are actually distributed between all the games in the environment. And over there you have the operating system and the application running on top of the resources. So let's look a little bit about how, let's say, a data center of organization looks like before and after virtualization. In the old physical world, we had, in this example, 4 servers: Exchange, File, CRM, and VPN. And we're doing a process of consolidation. We're actually, like we said, decoupling physical and the physical layer and the software, and we're creating a resource pool. We are taking all our hardware and just throwing it in a pool of resources. And on top, we have the virtual infrastructure, and we have each of the servers we had now as a virtual machine. So the way this is working, once you get the resource pool and once you have this separation, is that you can have dynamic allocation of resources to your virtual machines. You can have, for example, in this example, Exchange, CRM, and File Printer each use a different segment of the physical hardware. And in case, for example, the Exchange needs more power, it can get it, and it can get it from the shared resource pool. And in this case, the CRM gets less computing power and less memory. And of course, you can add dynamically more physical resources. And in case you have a disaster of some sort that you lose, again, the system, what you call, heals itself and can compensate with the resource pool itself. So one of the things, the coolest thing in virtualization is the concept that your operating system is no longer tied to the physical resources, so you can look at the virtual machine as a file. And once you have this encapsulation of the virtual machine, you can do all those new things which you couldn't do till now. For example, you can just take a live virtual machine and move it between 2 physical servers. So you can migrate the virtual machine in 0 downtime. It's really cool. I wrote 0 with your shine, because it's not really 0. The marketing of the virtualization vendor claiming 0, but it's almost 0 downtime. And it's very effective to perform load balancing, to take the server out for maintenance, for upgrades, etc. And it's commonly used. So I think over 50 or 60% of production environment with virtualization is utilizing migration. So the idea is just take the VM and just pass it on via the networking layer, pass it to a different server, and once it is on the other server, it is up, and we may get, like, I don't want to drill down how it is done, but it is it's very, very interesting technology. This is one of the focuses we may get into in the next. Okay, so the question is whether are we really secured in this virtualization environment. We have new technology. We can understand the benefits of the technology, but Do we have new security risk? Do we have new threats in this environment? So you always hear about it all around, how different vendors are being hacked, and let's see here, Berkner professor, this is I think a year ago, and famous VMware source code being stolen, so hypervisor code is running somewhere there in the wild. And the latest crisis malware, which is targeting VMware virtual machine, this is actually the first malware which is targeting virtualization, virtual machine, or utilizing virtual machine in order to propagate itself. So there is a bad around here, but the question is, do we need to worry about it or not? So let's try to take the security, virtualization security and break it into concrete attack vectors. So the first and the most privileged layer of software layer of the environment is a hypervisor. And the hypervisor is the king of the hill. So your hypervisor is a new attack vector, a new surface which you have to protect, and this is the most privileged one, so you better protect it good. So you need to harden your hypervisor, of course. You need to see the services which are not used, like USB devices, Bluetooth, and other services which your virtual machine don't need. Just turn them off because you don't want to leave anything, you don't want to enlarge your attack surface. Of course, you need to patch it. For some reason, I see a lot of cases where you just deploy the E6 and for some reason, the administrator doesn't consider or forget to patch and upgrade their hypervisor with the latest patches. And of course, use like common methodologies like the least privilege principle. So everyone on your environment should have exactly the privileges you require, just like you do in the physical environment. So in case we have an attacker which is able and I don't get into how exactly, we saw a few bullets before, if it gets a way to inject something into your hypervisor, it's game over. Because you are at the most privileged level, and from here I can control and simulate whatever I would like for your virtual machines. But that's not enough, because there are some APIs and some services which allow virtual machines to get access to the hypervisor. So this virtual machine, this one for example, is not a regular virtual machine. It is actually an elevated virtual machine. And now my attack surface is a lot bigger. So I have this virtual machine and I have the hypervisor. If you remember, for example, VMware E6. So the service console in VMware E6 was an example of such a case where the attack vector was huge because the service console could control the hypervisor. And in this case, the attacker can attack the virtual machine, and once it has access to the virtual machine, it has root on the virtual machine, and it's no-brainer to get and infect the hypervisor because it has the privileges of the hypervisor, and again, this is game over. So one of the things to think about is keep your hypervisor as thin as possible. So VMware is going this way, and then move from E6 to E6i, and there is always sort of a fight between virtualization vendor who has the thinnest, or something like this. And so this is one point to take from here. We don't need game over. Another common problem with virtualization is the concept of Vim sprawl. And Vim sprawl the problem is, and this is a new problem for virtualization environment, it's very, very easy and fast to create new virtual machines. So everybody wants new virtual machine. You're just a few clicks away from creating your virtual machine. And all of a sudden you see all this virtual machine spawning out of control, and you don't even know where each virtual machine resides, whether it's a HR virtual machine or finance. You don't have even the time to do a threat assessment. And if this is what is happening in your organization, then in a very short time, you will see neglected VMs, they call them, or zombie VMs, which are unpatched, and no one is the owner of them, and besides the storage they will take, they're also good attack vectors for that attack. So we enlarge your attack vector, so this is a real problem in virtualization, and there are different products to try to solve this problem by trying to make sense and bring order to your virtualization environment, but this is still a real problem. So one of the things I heard from network administrator, from security administrator, to solve this problem is to create, I have a new virtual machine, and I, as a security administrator, need to decide what to do with it. So I need to do a threat analysis. I need to understand what security zone should be applied to. I need to understand whether it requires internet access, which VMs it need to communicate, and it's a lot of work. So in the past, I had a lot of time because a new server was a big deal. But now it's happening every day. So I don't really have the time. And because this is one of the benefits of VMware, because all the managers see the ROI of VMware or virtualization, and they see the cost reduction, and they say, okay, so I'll be able to have new virtual machine instead of a 4-month period, I can have it in a week. So the expectation from the administrator rises, and it seems like the administrators found a nice solution. They are creating VLANs. So every new virtual machine is, you are creating VLANs, separated from your environment, and let's worry about it later. I put it in the to-do list. So now our cheap and easy way to create new virtual machines. Everybody wants virtual machine. We get to the VM sprawl, we talked about this. So this creates more and more VLAN, which takes us to the VLAN sprawl problem. And VLAN sprawl problem is, again, a very bad thing to do because you can't manage it. It creates latency, it creates blind spots in the environment. You don't really know what to do and who is doing what and what is the packet flow in your environment. So this is another real problem in a virtualization environment. So this next thing is, it's kind of obvious for anyone who practiced a little bit of virtualization, but you have a virtual machine and vSwitches which are very, very easy to configure. So let's look at, for example, I have this virtual machine and I have a network adapter, and to connect it to the wrong subnet or the wrong virtual switch is just a click away. Compared to what you had to do in your physical environment, you had to go and you had to pull the network wire and connect it. Over here, all you have to do is just, let's say I want to connect it to the DMZ network, but my finger slips, and now I connect it to my corporate network. And this is a good case. Usually it's not that tidy here. So it's very, very easy to do mistakes and to have configurations in this environment. And you need to have products and restrictions which will prevent such cases. So we talk about live migration. I really like live migration, but there's a lot to go into in the technology side here, and I don't want to do it here. But just for you to think about, two things to think about with VM migration. First of all, it can break security zoning. So if I'm not careful enough, I can find my virtual machine, my database or my credit cards stored virtual machine, moving to an environment which is not in the same security zone. Move to a physical server, which is considered a different security zone. So I have to have very, very strict rules about where my virtual machines reside and where they are allowed to move to. But more than that, you will rarely see such a deployment where you employ encryption between these two physical servers. And the main reason is because you pass a lot data, and you need a very, very low latency. You remember the zero downtime. So now, so you don't employ encryption here. So this gives an attacker the opportunity, if he has a way to sniff this switch, he has a way to look on the virtual machine memory pages, and even worse, to infect it with a malware. So in this case, you infect it and you change the memory pages. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack, and game over. So there are a lot more attacks on virtualization. There's a nice paper by a few guys from Tel Aviv University about cache timing attack, which targets the shared cache of the CPU to allow you to get information on encryption keys of different guest virtual machines. And side channel attacks. And like I said, we've seen the first wild malware that specifically targets virtual machine a month ago, or even less, called the Crisis. You're looking to read more about it. You have a lot of blind spot in your environment. Like I said, you have the switches, maybe you have the VLANs, but you don't know what is going on over there. It's very hard to do the auditing. And sort of initial problem, you have a problem of different duties, different administrators in your environment fighting over who should define a new virtual machine, who should define the network. Is it the VMware administrator? Is it the security administrator? Is it the network administrator? And if you don't have a clear instruction or clear regulation in the organization, you will have a mess. And very shortly, what does Checkpoint does in this virtualization jungle? So what Checkpoint does in order to help secure the virtual environment is to integrate with the virtualization vendor. Specifically here I'm talking about VMware. We are actually integrating in the VMware kernel, in the hypervisor, and we have our own model running over there. And from that model, we are able to see anything that is happening in the environment. All the network, which is going from any VM to any VM. We can see a new virtual machine being created, the detailed change, any virtualization event in the environment is visible. We can see it, we can stop it. And this gives huge power to do things which are, first of all, as good as the real world, the physical world. But even more, you can do stuff which you couldn't dream about in the physical world. For example, I can look in the file system of a server without having any agent in that server. I can shut down the virtual machine. I couldn't dream of doing this in the physical world. So this is what I say. We actually have a connector which plugs into the hypervisor and provides security and auditing from the hypervisor itself. So this is your cloud. We talked about the VLAN problem, for example, the VLAN sprawl, and you have all the virtual machine, but now you deploy the agent inside the VMware kernel, inside the hypervisor, and you get all of your virtual machine instantly with firewall abilities, with all of the security functionality which we provide, by no need to deploy any agent in the environment. Of course, if you have a new virtual machine, you don't have to do anything. It automatically inherits the policy, the security policy you have in your organization. So let's go to cloud security. I have a question, just to know you better. Who here is a user of cloud? Okay, and who is involved in a company which provides cloud services, cloud security?
Check when people better raise the hand.
Yeah. Okay, and who is just interested in cloud? Okay, don't be shy. Okay, so I would consider myself all of the above. So really quick. With cloud computing, it doesn't really imply virtualization. You can have cloud services, and you've had cloud services before the virtualization boom. But it usually goes together, at least today. But cloud defines that you can get your service from the internet over the network. You get services over the network. And the idea is that if cloud is implemented with virtualization, you are sharing your hardware resources with other organizations, users, etc. We have three types or we have more, but three major types of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and the software as a service. And the idea is to provide public cloud services which anyone can connect to from any point in the world with any device. Okay, so this is public cloud. In private cloud, this means that I have the same benefits and the same, especially if I'm utilizing virtualization, but this is not hosted externally, but is hosted inside my organization. So I have this organization here, this is part of the organization, and I'm able to access my services, my private cloud, without going out to the internet. And the internet, this is inside the corporate firewall, and you have the firewall protecting you from unwanted accesses externally compared to the public cloud. And hybrid cloud, it is less common today, but definitely the way to go in the future is the ability to extend your data center into the cloud. It's very commonly used before like peak times, like before Christmas. People have very lot of shopping, so you see a lot of vendors extending their data centers to the public cloud to stand and achieve the requirements. So you have your data center in your headquarters, you have your public cloud, and now what you need is a way to connect them securely over the internet. You have to create usually a VPN tunnel between the two sites, and you would like to use any of this virtual machine the same way you use your data center. And if you look even further, then you would like to have virtual machine migrating transparently from your headquarters to your public cloud and create a hybrid cloud. So let's see a really quick movie about why it's important to structure cloud.
Wir sind nach der Equation genommen und stößt auf Staatsrat vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Bornau und Pankow. Und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg, Marsdorf, Krautshaus gelandet.
Den Angriff stellen lassen und das alles in Ordnung haben.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht in den Kräften passieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodl, Krebs und Butter. Dan bin ich schneller als Millionen. Jeder hat mich verloren zu einem Verein. Die gesamte Generation ist in 2000 Haufen niederträchtiger Treue oder Feiglinge.
Natürlich kann ich zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verpflichtet
Nicht Feiglinge, Verräter, Versager.
was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generation ist das Geschmolz des deutschen Volkes. Sie ist ohne Ehre. Sie nennt sich Generale, weil sie Jahre auf Militärakademie zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man besser Glaube hält. Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen überwältigt. Es hat mich jeden Widerstand in den Weg gelegt. Ich hatte gut daran getan. Und daran alle Höheroffiziere liquidiert worden, wie Stalin. Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein aus bester Recht ganz Europa erobert.
Okay, so we just stop this. Who was ever attended in such a meeting? Okay, and one of you. Okay, so maybe not everyone is this, but this is something you hear a lot. How many of you, of the users of the cloud services, ever read the SLA of the cloud provider?
Yeah, it's like that.
Okay, so I see only like a third of the people read the SLA. So you will notice that the SLA usually is really vague. Like if you have in case of Amazon, if you have a downtime of up to 5 seconds, 5 minutes, and sorry, it doesn't count as a downtime. So the 99. Thanks. So 99.9% SLA is good, but you have a lot of caveats, and like in the, if you heard about the latest Easter outage with Amazon, most of the users didn't get any compensation of the downtime because of a legal issue with the SLA. So you see a lot of problem where a lot of organization, a lot of users doesn't know, first of all, what is written in the SLA, and second, who is in charge of security in this environment. Is it the user or is it the cloud provider? By the way, how many of you think the cloud provider is the owner of the security in the environment? If I'm using cloud services, he is the one which should protect the environment from security threats.
Some of it.
No?
Some of it.
Some of it. How many think the user has to do the security?
Most of it.
Okay, how many think it should be equally distributed or distributed? Okay. So it's nice that you think that most of you think that the you, because that's good. But when you go, for example, to Amazon Web Services, you're already limited with what you can do to protect the cloud. So it probably has to be some sort of a unified solution between the provider and the user, but it's not the case today. So let's go back. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the SLA. Remember that 99.9% uptime does mean a day downtime a year. So you still need to have a disaster recovery strategy. Data ownership, think about it. I hear in the last year a lot of concerns, mainly from customers abroad, not from Israel, but about the ownership of the data, the legality stuff. For example, if a court subpoenaed your data from the cloud provider environment, the cloud provider is not obligated to even inform you. So you don't have a legal way to reject such a subpoena or take legal measures against it. And this is something I hear from a customer which is disturbing in this environment, in this model. Of course, you want to have the legacy security measures, the firewall and the antivirus and everything else in the virtualization environment as well. You want to have the environment hardened and best practices used. And like I said, you want to have the ability to perform, to handle a disaster in a way which will allow you to continue service your customer. And the thing is, maybe the most important thing is you want to have a way to escalate in case you have an issue in the environment. You don't want to wait online while your customers are out of service. So it is critical for you to have a way to escalate to someone which will solve your problem ASAP. So part of the problem with the security, with running on the same virtual platform, same cloud platform, with additional organization is that you never know who is on the other side of the virtual machine, who is the guest on the other side. And since you can't tell who is there, you are relying on the fact that whoever runs the stuff in the other virtual machine is as limited as you and is encapsulated and cannot do any harm to your environment. And this is kind of probably know this is kind of the matrix thing.
You're here because you know something.
This is exactly
What you know you can't explain.
time where a virtual
Feel it.
machine, yes, virtual machine,
You felt it your entire
managed to get out
There's something wrong.
of that
You
virtual
don't know
machine.
what it is, but it's there,
From its
like a splinter.
from the matrix outside of
Driving
the
you mad.
hypervisor to the real world.
It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes. Really, no one can be told what
Here is a part, if you haven't seen the matrix, where kind of
You have to see it for
choose
yourself.
between the blue pill and the red pill, takes the blue pill, and by that he is able to get out of the virtual machine boundaries and get
This is your
to the
last
virtual
chance.
environment.
After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth.
So let's think how this matrix is implemented in our virtualization environment. So let's say that this is one matrix, this is another matrix. And if the attacker has any ability to get out, take the blue pill, get out of the VM boundaries, it will be able to go and attack our virtual machine, poison our virtual machine, or even worse, like you said, the hypervisor. And again, if you own the hypervisor, it's game over. And there are ways in the wild to do it. There are some attacks in the past which were published in Black Hat and other conferences, which allow you to perform perform a guest escape and trigger your installation. They are now already patched, but you have to consider this. So another problem running in a multi-tenancy environment where you don't know who is your fellow tenant is that it can, of course, be an attacker, a hacker, and maybe if the resource allocation are not done correctly by the provider, they can perform a denial of service on the shared resources in the environment. So let's say I have 3 tenants here, each using a part of the resources, and if I'm not careful enough, if it's not well defined, the attacker can overload the system and gain more and more resources of the environment, and finally will be able to stop or starving our part of the cloud. Another problem by sharing resources, we talked a little bit about cache poisoning or cache attacks, is that you are sharing the CPU, you are sharing the memory, you are sharing the storage. And you have to make sure, you have to know that when this storage or shared resource moves from one tenant to another, the memory is scrubbed, is wiped out. Because if for some reason the memory stays there, the attacker will be able to look at the memory pages of your machine, memory pages or disk, or even cache of CPU. So for example, if I have this very important data over here and it's stored on my public cloud, on my shared resources, in case an attacker will get access to the shared resources, that's okay. If the data is not scrubbed, then now the attacker have access to, is able to read my data. And again, this is not theoretical. This is, again, you can look at the research from 2009 about cache, I don't know how it's called, but cache attacks in virtualization environments. And a group of researchers from Tel Aviv University proved just that. They are able to guess the encryption keys of a guest virtual machine. Very interesting study. So the question is, the next question is, of course, when you give your data away to the cloud, beside all the attack, you have to completely trust your cloud provider. Because the cloud provider, and it doesn't matter if you encrypt your environment, if you encrypt your data, cloud provider will be able to, if he likes, to look at your data. And this is because your data, even if it's encrypted, when it is in use, your data is unencrypted. And for example, if you have encrypted data, so that's okay, the administrator can't do with this anything, but if I am using it now, it has to be decrypted and in my memory, and now the administrator can freeze the virtual machine, and he can just take a walk through my memory and get whatever he likes from memory. Some more issues, where is the data located? It's very important because you have different restriction, different regulation in different places. For example, I think the European Union doesn't allow some of the location to store critical information. And you have different privacy law, you have different law about encryption. You can pass different regulation in different locations. So you have to understand this in order to do a proper auditing and compliance. So most of this was in the cloud provider side, and I'm guessing none of you really know if your cloud provider answers some of these requirement demands, but this is on your side, this is on the user side. So you have to remember that if you move from your data center to your public cloud, everyone can now try and access your virtual machine. It's not like this is put it behind a firewall, this is internally with your organization.
Erez.
Yeah. You're the owner now, so that you know. So you have to remember that and have a clear access control who can access your virtual machine and what privileges are given to him. And your data. You want to encrypt your data, even though it's not assumed that the public cloud provider wants to see your data, and if your data is so sensitive, don't put it in the cloud. But you want your data at rest and your data at rest to be encrypted. And a very key point is where do you hold the keys? Do I hold them in my organization? Do my cloud provider hold them? And who is the owner who is performing the encryption operation? And of course, you want to implement host-based, network-based, everything you do on the physical world, and not just implement them, but pay attention to the logs. I've been to numerous customers who are sleeping tightly because they have firewall or other security measures deployed, but they are not checking their log system. Okay, so again, what is checkpoint doing in the public cloud arena? So very briefly, and then maybe this is something I will dive deeper in the next sessions. Checkpoint has a virtual appliance targeted for Amazon Web Services, where you can deploy Checkpoint as a virtual machine in the cloud, and this virtual machine, or AMI, Amazon wording, allow you to perform exactly the same security you used to do in your data center, your enterprise. So you have all the security functionality. You can perform a VPN if you're using the public hybrid deployment, for example, and you get the best security in Amazon Web Services cloud. This is an example. This is our AMI, which you are it's very easy to just find it on the market and deploy it in your environment, and you have your virtual machine, the AMI is in Amazon, protected by a gateway which controls all the access and inspects all the traffic to the environment. So that's the point I want to tell is about the future, and it will be very brief. I think it would be very interesting to do a whole session of vision and how is cloud security solution will look in 5 years. But the main thing I see is a consolidation of different security solutions into virtualization security suites. So you will be able to buy a security solution from one vendor